The recording. All right. Welcome everybody to our June Zero Waste Task Force meeting. And our topic for this month is zero waste events, backyard barbecues to street fairs. So if you are just joining, feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself, share your name, an organization if you work with one, and where you are joining us from. And since we're talking about events tonight, share with us what upcoming event has you most excited. So, to get started, what is WASS? WASS stands for Westchester Alliance for Sustainable Solutions. It is an alliance of community organizations and community members from Westchester County working to close the Wheelabrator Westchester Trash Incinerator, operated by Wind Waste Innovations in Peekskill, where the county burns its trash and where I am sitting about a mile, less than a mile from it tonight. So tonight we are talking about zero waste events. And you can see what happens when your event is not zero waste. That's a pretty famous one from Glastonbury Festival in England several years ago now. But that is what can happen when you don't have a good plan for how to manage your waste at an event. And we are going to hear from several speakers about how to properly manage by minimizing waste at events this evening. So I do have a couple of announcements and updates to share with you, and then I'll hand it over to Jude from Hudson Compost. He's going to be talking about some solutions his company offers for making your personal, like backyard barbecue kind of events zero waste. Then we will hear from Helen Muir, who is coordinating the waste management for Pleasantville Music Festival, which is a municipal event. And then we will hear from MJ Wilson, who is coordinating the zero waste stuff for the Hudson River Music Fest that's this weekend. At the end, so each speaker will have about 10 minutes. Some will be sharing slides, and then we will do community discussion and Q&A as usual, and then we've got some action items we can share. So a couple quick announcements. In case you missed it, last week or a couple weekends ago was the Peekskill Herald's Waste Not, Want Not program, focusing on the circular economy here in Peekskill. And I spoke as well as Barbara Corian from Retake Remake and Joanne Reed from Mend by Me. And if you weren't able to attend, the Herald has the recordings on their website. So if you look up the article I'm showing on the right, and Caitlin maybe can drop the link in the chat. Oh, she already did. You can watch the presentations there. If you don't know about Retake Remake, it is an amazing organization. It is creative reuse. So think of a thrift store for everything arts and crafts, from sewing machines and looms to hand-dyed wool, old sewing patterns, buttons, leatherworking, you know, picture frames, like everything you could imagine, they have. And it is my go-to first stop for anything that I need, including school supplies. Because and I said this at the event, I was like, you buy a binder at Walmart, and before October, it is broken and your kid needs a new one. But if you get the binder at Retake Remake and it has already survived 30 years at IBM, you know it can survive a year in the backpack of a middle school student. So, and then Joanne Reed with Mend by Me, they basically set up free shopping. So they take donations and prep the clothes, and then community members in need can come and take what they need. So they're both really awesome organizations here in Peekskill. The other announcement, and I don't know if other people saw this on the news, but there was a massive fire up in Massachussetts of one of their trash incinerators. This is a Covanta plant, but I'm sharing it tonight specifically because of how shocking it was if you read on the right, the amount of mutual aid that they needed to call in. So they had their local, and then they had the Marion and Mattapoisett fire departments. And then they reached out even further. So Wareham, Lakeville, Acushnet, Freetown, and all of these other communities had to send firefighters and first responders to this fire. And this is what, this is kind of how it works, which is that company makes a lot of money, but when there's something wrong, it is the local residents who are risking their lives, and it's the local residents' tax dollars that are going to pay for the emergency response. And sadly, when I was Googling to find this article, um, I wasn't sure which incinerator fire I was talking about because apparently there was also an incinerator fire up in Maine and it is still smoldering today, this evening. So, this is not an uncommon occurrence and a good reminder for us and for our electeds that this is not a great solution because, how often does your compost pile catch on fire besides never? So we need to keep that in mind and not have our first responders risking their lives and well-being for corporate profits. So, with that, MJ, did you mean to raise your hand?
Yeah, actually, compost piles do catch on fire.
Because they get hot.
Yeah, there was one in Central Park a few years ago, and there was a huge one on St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Ooh.
And then just another comment. Um, have been, I mean, when you have that much mutual aid, it's usually that there is that big of a need. Sometimes it's that poor of a plan.
Mm.
So that's also something to be aware of when there are incinerators to do what you can to make sure they have a well thought out plan for emergency response
Yeah. Well,
so that it isn't wasted.
given how poor all the planning for the nuclear plant of the Algonquin pipeline is in Westchester County, I would doubt there's any kind of plan because the uh, the nuke plant folks thought they would go outside with a fire hose to put out a gas pipeline fire, and they had really no idea that, people a mile away would be burned. So I do not have high hopes, but that would be a good question for us to ask the city of Peekskill about that planning. So next, to get into our topic of zero waste, WASS has held several events and all of them have been zero waste. Our most recent event was our Waste in Westchester Summit, and I know many of you on this call were there. And, proof of our zero waste commitment, thanks to MJ and to other WASP volunteers, as well as Anthony Carbone from Sustainable Materials Management, this was what our waste looked like at the end of the day. So you can see we have a big bag for compost, a little bag for recycling, and a teeny tiny bag of trash. And that compost bag really could have been smaller. We came up against a common problem, which is cost. So we wanted this event to be zero waste. We would have preferred reuse and use real plates and real silverware, but the cost was exorbitant because the caterers used to working with disposables. And so if we wanted real silverware, real plates, we not only, it would have been $5 a person a meal. And we served a breakfast and a lunch. And we had over 50 people. And we also would have to pay for staff to clear the real plates and things. So we really are in a system that's set up for things to be disposable. But even in that kind of system, we were able to make this a zero waste event. And Anthony Carbone was very generous and took our compost bag of compost with him after the event and composted it for us at Sustainable Materials Management. And on the right, you can see what it takes to make a zero waste event. So we have our WASS volunteers doing their deal. They've got their tongs and they're talking with people and helping them to sort their waste. And I think you're probably going to hear from Helen and MJ that this is an important part of doing events where not everyone who's there knows how to manage their waste in this way. We also have a couple of resources that we're sharing, and Caitlin can drop those links in the chat. One is the Sonoma County Zero Waste Events Guide. Some of this is specific to California in terms of like laws and things, but it's a really good guide for if you want to make an event zero waste and you don't know where to start. We're hoping this webinar will be a good primer for you, but some more details are in there. And we've also got links to the Sonoma County draft zero waste events legislation, because we know that, without real force of law and changing the system of how we manage these things, we're really not going to get to zero waste. So we're providing these resources in the chat, and certainly you can reach out to us if you need more guidance. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Jude, who's going to be our first speaker for tonight.
Thank you so much, Courtney, and thank you all for having me. Super happy to be here. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just to introduce myself, my name is Jude. I'm one of the co-founders of Hudson Compost, which is a circular compost or food scrap pickup service operating throughout Westchester. We pick up from about 800 homes weekly. And one of the things that we have as a kind of membership added value is this aspect called party pickups, which is essentially for members to be able to compost at gatherings. So I have a little presentation that I'd be happy to share with you all. Just give me one moment. Let's see what I can do here. 1 second. Sorry about that. It's telling me I just need to grant access. Apologies here. Here we go. There we go. All right. Can everyone see this by chance?
Yes.
Okay, amazing. So we have essentially my partner, Ben, Juan, and I, we were thinking about things that we could add to our service at no additional cost to our members. Last spring, we were just discussing how essentially we were only providing weekly pickups and really not much more than that. And as we were evaluating what many of our members were requesting pretty consistently, they were asking us for either larger bins or if they could leave out significantly more more food scraps and compost on a weekly basis, because they were having either some kind of a Memorial Day party or it was Father's Day or all of the above throughout the spring and summer most of the time. So we were thinking about what we could essentially do without actually raising the price or having to ask them to pay us more money for it. And we came up with a solution we called party pickups. So essentially what it is we provide all of our members one of these boxes on the left, which contains compostable serviceware, compostable plates, cups, utensils. We also give out some napkins and paper straws so that anyone that may not have compostable serviceware on hand actually can just receive it. And it's up for each box contains enough for about 25 individuals. We also provide a 23-gallon bin lined with compostable liners so that it essentially acts as a garbage can that you can place throughout whatever function or party you happen to be hosting. And this is just essentially mimicking the idea of some kind of dinner party or graduation party. Most homes or events would have garbage pails set up throughout. And we wanted to be able to offer that. In addition, we have a guide on what we take. We partner with Sustainable Materials Management, Anthony Carbone, as Courtney was speaking about. So we take all the same material that's taken to all the RFSTAT drop-off sites. I actually think I have a little guide of it here. So this is attached to the bin. We wanted to make it super easy for people to walk up to it and know exactly if they need to compost it or not, if they can compost whatever food scraps they had. We also recommended that all of our members that were participating in this would put a recycling bin next to our bin as well. So that if they don't see that they have metal can or bottle, they don't continue to throw it in, but they actually just leave it to the side in the recycling bin. And like I said, we take all the similar items that go to sustainable materials management, which is really great because we were able to kind of show that we can take more than most people understand with composting. Another essential aspect of this was that we wanted to educate. If someone happened to live in the area or wasn't familiar with composting and was attending this event or party, they could really very visually see how easy and how great it is to do so. So essentially, how we were able to kind of put this all together, I think I have another little slide here. This is the box that we would give out. Has a little card, and these are the serviceware that we would provide. And then this is the card that would come with it, just to show you all what we would give them. And then we would also drop off one of these larger 23-gallon bins, like I mentioned. And essentially how we came up with it was that so we didn't have to add a new route or a new pickup. What we would do is we give all of our members the opportunity to request it ahead of time. So essentially what they do is they go on our website and they press whatever date they're having their event for, and we drop off one of these party pickup kits that week during the regular pickup, which is really great. So let's say they're having a party on Saturday and their pickup is on Thursdays. We'll drop it off that Thursday before. And then so that we didn't have to essentially go back again, we would just ask that they would leave it out for us on that next pickup day. We would also provide bungee cords. Some of our members would put a brick on top of it, just to ensure that, as we all know, there are many critters around here. But this has been very effective. We've seen a significant amount of interest, actually so much that we have about 20 kits at the moment, and they're all being used right now. So they're being utilized on a weekly basis. I would say like 75% of what we can offer throughout, starting in usually, I would say, Memorial Day through Labor Day, which is fantastic. And we've gotten really great feedback as well. And we pick up huge bags of compost. We provide several other compostable bags as well they can put into the bin, so that if they need to pull them out and if they're having a larger party, they can do so. And in some cases, we also will provide more than one bin. We've been really trying to be flexible about how we're positioning this, from a perspective that we're introducing this kind of new part of our service, and we want to understand if we need to adjust it at any time. If most individuals want 2 bins, then maybe that's something that we'll do in the future. So far, giving everyone 1 bin and 1 box has been really great for us, and that was just honestly luck. But it's been used a really significant amount. Like I said, it is only available for our members, for the reason being that it's a part of our pickup schedule. In terms of potentially offering other events in the future to people outside of it, I'm not sure, we haven't really thought about it completely, but this is essentially what I'm very excited to share with you guys, and kind of how it's all been going. So happy to answer any questions as well that you all might have. But thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jude. There are some questions in the chat,
Perfect.
and I told folks feel free. You can answer them in the chat, or we'll
Yeah.
ask them when we get to the Q&A part, so that we don't lose. We can kind of stay on a good schedule.
Totally.
All right. So next up, I don't even remember now who I put on the agenda in what order. I think Helen was next.
Okay, I'll share. So, is that clear enough?
It's still loading for us. Give it.
Oh,
Let's
all
give
right.
it. Yep. Now you can put it in a slideshow. If you put in slideshow, it'll be easier for us to see.
Oh, I haven't done this in forever. How do you do that?
On the bottom next to the slider for zooming, there's a little thing that's supposed to look like a screen. Bottom right. Nope. Go to the left a little bit. There. Yeah, that.
This one? Reading view? No, this one.
Nope. Yeah,
This
it looks
one.
like a screen. There you go.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so thanks for inviting me, and MJ, thanks for suggesting it. Um, I'm just going to keep moving along because that's very boring. Um, so just quickly, in 2009, we added water to the music festival, which was a very loosey-goosey festival, nothing but trash collection. This is from the Conservation Advisory Council, which I'm on. And then we actually did a water refill station. And then another group I'm on, Pleasantville Recycles, we added recycling. And in 2012, I followed MJ around the setup of Clearwater and then added composting. And then one of the things I know MJ's come up against is for VIPs, they don't always get into this. So we were able to add a backstage zero waste station around 2016. So because a lot of trash was coming from there too. And now our vendor contract requires compostable serverware. So in terms of numbers, before we started, 5.8 tons of garbage. After recycling was added, went down half a ton, not even half a ton. And then in 2012, when we added the food scrap, and these numbers are very hard to know exactly because of the way the stuff is weighed, but it went a long way down to just under 2 tons of garbage. And now we're down to about a ton of garbage, ton of compost food scraps, and a quarter of a ton of recycling, and then other bits and pieces, which is good. We have a team, essentially of 4 or 5 who have been doing this for a while. So Bridget handles supplies. One of the team, Karen, talks to the vendors to make sure they're compliant ahead of time. And then on the day, we invite all volunteers to come to a central place just before their shift and learn about all the different serverware that's available, because there's a big food court. One guy, Dan, has taken over volunteer communications, which involves setting up a schedule and getting people to sign up. This is me, and then Edwin, who's kind of been involved for a while, has done all the graphics in the past. And we have a big team. So we have all of us plus 4 to 5 volunteers all day, which is from about 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., a bit later for some of us. And then we have, I heard we've got 45 people signed up already. So we're good for shift volunteers, which are about 3 shifts a day, 3 shifts, 3 time slots, 5 stations. So there's a lot of stuff goes on in the background, as MJ knows. We ask our old volunteers, and then the festival asks for more volunteers. Karen talks to the food vendors a month before, more than a month before. We make sure DPW has got all the supplies, because you don't want to start a festival without any compost bags, which I think more than one of us has had to do. A volunteer meeting where we talk to the volunteers, especially the new ones, is held 2 weeks before. Check in with the food vendors, and then we don't have the fabulous setup that Hudson River Music Festival has with water on tap. We use igloo coolers, which are a bit unwieldy, but we make it work. And then the day off, we put the stations up. This is a list. I can share these with you, but these are all the things that each station has. The usual, totes and bags. And then we have like a special box for the volunteers with gloves, a grabber, and so on. So it's pretty organized by Bridget. We also run water stations, as I mentioned, and we work with the village staff to make sure all the coolers remain full. I borrow additional coolers from the schools and from the rec center, and I have to do some cleaning the day before, which is a little bit, old school. But now Captain Lawrence, who's one of the vendors, brings kegs of water, which is really helpful for the beer garden. These are some photos. I like this one because there's MJ. with my daughter and my daughter's friend. This is me and my husband at the backstage tent, which is a very quiet area, generally compared with the middle of the festival. Although there's a lot of traffic, it's not so surrounded. Guy refilling, one of the DPW guys, Mike refilling the coolers, and then the waste we're not able to weigh. We weigh by hand. The recycling bags on the right, we have a handheld scale, and the Monday after the festival, Bridget and I go in and hoist them on up in the air and calculate about how much the recycling weighs. We don't weigh the cardboard; it's too difficult. So, but we're happy it's separated. Problems at the bathroom areas, people would just throw anything into the waste there. So last year we had contractor buckets with lids with slots, and that worked a lot better, but it's an ongoing issue. And we have an area called Tent City, which is quite busy, about 90 tents, and they tend to just be doing their own thing, and they don't really want you to see what they're doing in their tents, so they don't always put their stuff in the bags, the right bags, their own bags, so they just commingle. So we do periodic walks through as a friendly kind of, we know a lot of the people in the tents and say, hey, give me your recycling. But it's hard to get them to separate the food scraps out. But we're working on it. We started with things like, don't leave garbage cans, which are littered across the festival site ordinarily, for everyday use. And we make sure it's only waste stations that collect garbage, mostly. And as I mentioned, Karen meets with all the volunteers before each shift just to review what all the vendors have for compostable ware, because it all looks different. Things like don't stack too many cups when you're putting them in the compost because they clog up the work. Well, they don't decompose very well. And then we have a little box for volunteers to throw things in if they don't know what to do with it. What else? In addition, we work with the food vendors and collect food and give it to a food kitchen and or pantry. And one of the volunteers in a different area collects plastic bags and shrink wrap and stuff like that to go to some program for upcycling into benches. So I collect that and drop it off at her house later that week. And then you see one of our team, Edwin, found a disposable glove collection. I'm a little bit skeptical about this, but we'll see. I think it might be more expensive than it's worth, but we'll find out. And it's taken years to get to the point where we're working with the village hand in hand. At the beginning, it was a struggle to get them on board, but I think the general feeling these days is that it's the right thing to do. So I think it's not so difficult to start with a new festival to do this kind of work. And that's it.
Excellent. Yes, that was really, we're getting ready to help our local Peekskill Pride in the Park, and we're going to be working on the zero waste stations along with Peekskill 100 and our city's Conservation Advisory Council. And I wholeheartedly endorse all of these. This is the way it happens.
Mm.
So thank you, Helen. If you want to stop sharing, we will
What I had.
hit. Nope.
Oh, fine.
Thank you. So MJ, you are up.
Okay, so go to share. Uh-oh, okay, wait. Are you okay, share.
Yep, it's coming up. We see it. So just go into your slideshow and we should be good to go. Yes,
Okay.
excellent.
Now, just as a warning, I have way too many slides, so I'm going to go through some of them very, very quickly. So to me, zero waste, when you work on it, I am moving closer to the dream. I've been at this for quite a while, including doing newspaper recycling in 1970 when I was in high school on the student council, and we had a social studies teacher who was fired because he wore deck shoes and he had a goatee, therefore he had to be a communist. 1970.
Mm.
For the Clearwater Festival, I was involved from 2010 to 2019, and if I'm trusting that a lot of you have been to the Clearwater Festival and its various iterations and times, but it was a wonderful happening, and there was a whole lot going on with music, environmental education, activism, a whole bunch of stuff. It was 2 days, and it could be anywhere from 8,000 to 20,000 people, whether rain or shine. And we were at Croton Point Park for my duration. It originally, early stages, it had been elsewhere. And it was planned throughout the year by a few Clearwater staff and a volunteer planning committee. And there were times when we had over 1,000 volunteers making sure the event happened. These are some of the images. This is my hero, Toshi Seeger, because she was the one who required that they have recycling at the music festival. And the mythology is she talked Pete into having the music festival so she could teach people about recycling.
Mm.
Zero Waste Station. On my team, we were allowed to have people 12 years older and up who could volunteer, be official volunteers. And this year is a group of the stalwart volunteers, including Stan Weingast, who is returning again when we're going around at the end of the festival, cleaning up things in the dark of night. Festival started in 1978, and then in 2008 and 2009 is when they piloted organics, and that was Shabazz Jackson, and they started out at one small area, then they expanded out to a larger area, and then 2010, my first year, little did I know, that's when they expanded, collecting organics through the entire festival ground. And also, we had stations dedicated with the 3 barrels, no unattended barrels on the grounds. We do abandon the barrels at the Port of Sands. We just are not dealing with that. And the first year we went festival wide, we hired Cayuga Compost to bring a box truck out for them to collect the material in totes to load up their truck and take back to Ithaca. And we exceeded capacity. Second year, the same thing. And I think that's when, okay, and also in 2011 is when Westchester expanded out to plastics 1 through 7. 2012 is when we actually started being able to deliver the organics to Ulster County. And I've got a table of our numbers, so I won't go into this. But we were able to partner with Rock and Wrap It Up to be able to provide them with food and other materials that they could use at the end of the festival for them to distribute through their network. Let's see, skips, yeah, so these were, for my duration, these were our numbers. In 2010, 11, and 12, we didn't get the waste or the recycling. We only got compost. But 13, 14, 15, 16, we didn't have a festival in 16, but 17, 18, and 19. These are our numbers. In some cases, there was a lot of variation, but we had a 74% diversion rate, 80, 81, 80, 84, and then I don't know why in 2019 we dropped down to 61%. Sometimes it's a problem with getting the numbers correct, because you can't always rely on, when you've got that massive amounts of material, that they're actually getting it correct. And I don't know if there was rain that festival, because that also will add to the weight of the materials being weighed. But in 2018, we rocked it with an 84% diversion rate. And let's see. Oh, didn't come out so well. So for me, when I do planning for the festival, this is my planning tool. It's an Excel spreadsheet. And what I do is I scope out all the different zero waste stations I'm going to have, whether it's front of house or back of house. Back of house is back in the performers area, which people can get pretty touchy about. So we have to have people with special social skills back there that they don't put me back there. So people who know how to handle performers. And then we also need to have people monitoring the vendors because they can get mischievous at times. But then what I do is I up top, across the top here, I put out the shifts because each year, like last year we only had 2 stages. This year we've got 4 stages. So that means we've got more zero waste stations. And then different stages open and close at different times. So therefore my shifts will change. So in my spreadsheet here, I've got it set up so that I can turn a spot off or turn it on. This will tell me how many shifts I need. And by my calculation, I need 80 and a half people to fill all my stations correctly for this festival. When I change this, the number down here changes. So this is a tool that I use. And then I put in all the information I need about what stage is open when, and what time when they're serving volunteer food because they have a caterer who feeds volunteers. And this is one of my planning tools. Signage is essential. And Courtney, my apologies on the trash one. I'm torn between using the resources to get new signs versus leaving as is until they wear out. But that was in the before times when we did these up. Elisa Zazzaro was my graphic designer on this, by the way, for those who know her. And having pictures so people can look at it is important. And also for me, when I do zero waste events, I go by the rules of the house. So what that means here in the front of house, the attendees are regarded as park attendees. So what is collected from the audience is picked up by the park staff and it goes to the park dumpsters. And so they do their plastics 1 through 7, and then the trash. The compost is different, but the organics is different because Westchester County doesn't have a organics collection program, so that we have to contract for. But the back of house, which are the food vendors, we have to hire a hauler for that. And so what is accepted here depends on what the vendor will accept and haul. And so this last year for the Hudson River Music Festival, they had sustainable materials management. So we went by their rules. And also one year we had Suburban Hauling and they brought a 2 roll-offs, and they said, we are single stream now. We're going to do plastic, metal, glass plus cardboard. And I said, not in my house. So I made sure that we had 1 roll-off for cardboard because we have vendors with a lot of boxes. And one other one was for plastic, metal, glass, because when you have a single stream, you get a lot more contamination rate and less resale value on your materials, and it's bad. And the vendor argued with me, but then I found her one time sneaking up and pulling something out of the cardboard bin, the dumpster that had been put in there wrong, because she knew the value of having clean cardboard. Also back of house. So this right here, that was our trash. And we were able, one year we were able to do that. And then it's madness in back of house. It's just crazy. So the Hudson River Music Festival, sadly, the Hudson River Clearwater Revival sunsetted. But there was a group of dedicated volunteers who put together an organization called For Pete's Sake that raised the money to be able to hire a presenting team who then last year did the Hudson River Music Festival. And they do feature zero waste heavily. They've got a zero waste initiative, and this is their blurb on it. And they do pay tribute to Pete Seeger. So it's clearly stated on the festival website: dedicated volunteers, zero waste stations, vendor partnership, education awareness, real world impact. The structure is, once again, it's located in the park, so we have to play by the park's rules and work with park staff. It was seed funded by a small group of 501(c) folk, so we have to make them happy. Harbor House Music Foundation is one of the event producers. We have to make them happy. Dayglow is the production people, so we have to make them happy. And they have partnered with private sector, Pleasantville Theater is one of the local sponsors. So national and local, they've got a couple of national ones that I'm highly suspect about. And then they do still have volunteers, not nearly as many as with the revival, but the Zero Waste team is the largest. And I am fighting a decently good fight to keep it true to the revival as opposed to modern music festivals. Because to me, the legacy of Toshi is modern. It is not outdated. And I still need people on the Zero Waste team. If you are not busy on Saturday, if you're not busy on Sunday, and the good work spreads outward. Yay, Pleasantville. Sunplugged in Dobbs Ferry in 2013. We did Zero Waste there. Sarah Warmer did Zero to Go in Beacon for a while, and now she's actually moved on to bigger and better things. Scarsdale, the Hudson River Music Revival Zero Waste effort was able to give Scarsdale Michelle Sterling some serious information and some good support, and she was able to then rock it in Scarsdale and then beyond. I did a political fundraiser that I was invited to do Zero Waste for a fundraiser, and so I did an improv on that one. Signs are important. So this was Eliza signs again, which are similar to the Clearwater signs. And then for the fundraiser, there was somebody who had local chickens. So I did up a sign for the food scraps that we could collect for the local chickens. And then the other stuff went into the normal organics stream. Oh no, actually, this was before we had commercial. So we had the organics for the kitchen garden in Dobbs Ferry to do compost there. Then the meat, dairy, and cool on oils. I forget where I put those, but then the chickens ate well. Helen did a really good presentation on how she pulled it off and how she organized stuff. For me, I am the technical coordinator, and it all falls on my shoulders. The staff have been good support, but they don't always talk in Zero Waste talk. So that's its own kind of friction. I have a co-coordinator. She's the people person. I'm the technical person. And so it's for me, for the festival, given the size of it, and given the fact that there's a roving cast of characters, they shift around from year to year, it's its own kind of interesting challenge. And I strive to be as comprehensive as possible, innovative as possible, and survive it. Now, for beyond the festival, what I advocate for is have a shared, like a dish library. I do advocate on behalf of TerraCycle. Recycle Across America is great. People Towels, Rock and Wrap It Up. And then also another lesson learned is to try to figure out what food they have, because one time I did an event and they had clams on a shell. That was an interesting thing to manage. So these are the Recycle Across America signs that they do a good job, and you can order those, and they're decent. At least the last time I looked, they're decently affordable. Also, when they let me be involved in office planning, I was able to get Zaros to put their cupcakes into a cardboard box, not the plastic. I was able to get Markel napkins, which are made from recycled paper. So I can't do perfect things, but I do the best that I can to reduce what is wasted. And not only does it reduce what's wasted, but it can be an educational learning experience for other people, and it gets their attention. And of course, I had my reusable bag so that I didn't have to do more plastic. I went to an event that a school produced. This is what they put out. This is what I brought. That's what they had. This is what I had. And this was at a science event, by the way. Also, for better or for worse, I take educational observations everywhere I go. And that gives me insight into learning, into how people are behaving, what the stumbling blocks are, what they're getting wrong, what they're getting right. The idea that people can't stack their trays, I don't understand that, but that's human behavior. So when I do Zero Waste, I'm always having to account for human behavior.
Just a time check, MJ.
This is the second to the last. So one of my friends finally broke down and rented glasses, and they gave these little rings that you could put on them and put your name on it, so you knew what you could go back to your glass. And then this is my last comment. The
Well,
way of the
thank
world
you so much,
sometimes.
MJ.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for the work that all of you folks do.
All right, so questions. So I'll just scroll back up in the chat, but if you have any and you want to raise your hand, go for that. So there was a question from Lisa for Jude about the materials in the party box, which was, can this stuff only compost in an industrial facility? What is it made of?
Yeah, so we spoke to Anthony Carbone just about in general about anything that we take, even going from compostable liners to this serviceware material as well. And we essentially were given a light of anything that we were putting in that was like BPI certified. And then these materials as well would be okay within this facility that he's operating. We haven't seen any direct issues. One of the things that was brought up recently, on another note, was the excessive use of compostable liners and bags. That seems to be his main concern. Rather than the actual compostable serviceware that we use. But we were given the green light to use them. They're from a company called Webster Store that we trust. It's pretty reputable from what we've read online. Many other composting companies actually use them, and they're fully certified compostable and BPI certified as well. But we did go ahead and confirm that before purchasing them also. But like I said, one of the interesting things was that the compostable liners, many of you are familiar with them. They're pretty kind of all over the place. That right now is his biggest concern, being like saying that they're compostable and them not being very kind of plastic-like. We go through and really do confirm everything that we use with our members and what we take. And these, yes, they were confirmed with the facility Sustainable Materials Management, to answer your question.
Well, and
Thanks. And
also
for those,
can I add a comment here?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Because I talked to Anthony at Courtney's event, and
yeah,
and another thing that when I'm doing an event, I really like to stack stuff because it's less
yeah,
bulk. And he said that is a problem for him for the
yeah.
non-paper products. He says this is when you stack like the cups, or like basically when you do a stack of cups, it's hard for that to compost. What'll happen is it'll turn into a blob. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
And
No, absolutely. We've heard that too. Yeah.
yeah. And something that's really, really important for folks is to realize there is a difference between biodegradable and certified compostable. And it's essential to get things that are certified compostable.
Yes, absolutely. And just to clarify, we very know to stay away from anything that's biodegradable.
Well, now I was mentioning to the other people who might not know. I know you
No,
know.
no, absolutely. Yeah, just to clarify.
So, also maybe for all of our speakers, Jude, if you would drop a link to your site in the chat, and then
Yeah.
Helen and MJ, links for people to volunteer. So, if the Music of Pleasantville is still looking for volunteers, and maybe if you want to say, like, I know for Hudson River Fest, volunteers get a free ticket. So you do your shift and you can listen and you can have time to listen to the music. So Helen, do you want to say something about like if you're still looking for volunteers and the perks of volunteering?
I don't think Zero Waste is looking for volunteers, but certainly the perks are you're under a tent and you are usually paired up with one person, or the last shift of the day we have three, so it's very sociable. But the festival in general, I think, is still looking for general volunteers who might be, um, I can't even remember what they all do. There's so many different groups, but so I'll put a link up in a moment, and if people want to sign up, they can still sign up for Zero Waste if they want to try it, or they can do a secondary choice. But it's a fun festival, 3 stages, 5 bands on each, open beer garden, and lots of food vendors and stuff for kids, bouncy things, and it's a good
Yeah, it
day.
looks great. And then MJ, you have your volunteer link as well, right?
Yes, and I'm putting that in the chat now. I had it in before, but also to let you know, people, if you volunteer, you get free admission. You need to do 2 2-hour shifts. You get fed free food. And if you would like, you can camp overnight. Camp Saturday night, and you can camp Sunday night. And most likely you'll be able to get a free t-shirt. The order went in a while ago. He said he over ordered, so hopefully you do, but for late signups, I can't guarantee the t-shirt.
Awesome. Yeah.
And
And then
I
I
will.
wanted to share some of my like, with WASS, the way we haven't had events on the scale of these music festivals, but we have had events like we did one at the Yonkers Public Library. And just with our volunteers, several of us have I thrifted mine from the thrift store where, if you go to the right thrift store, you can get, forks and knives and spoons, 10 for $1. And so we all have like our big bag of real silverware that we bring. We have real cups. I'm trying to find metal cups as that are durable, that are not plastic. Ditto with plates, because obviously ceramic or glass plates, that's a challenge if you're traveling. So I do have some plastic ones, but I don't use those if people are eating anything that they need to cut or anything that's hot. So it's like if you're putting your potato salad and a hot dog in a bun on there, that's very different from like cutting a steak or putting hot chili on a piece of plastic. So definitely have my eyes peeled at the thrift for metal plates, lightweight metal plates, like for camping kind of things. But you can, thrift stores are overrun with glassware and silverware and plates and serving dishes and everything, and we're out of the decades of having fancy dinner parties. So I encourage you to look and see if you can find some at the rummage sales, garage sales, or go to your local buy nothing and post that you need it. I've loaned out my bags of stuff to total strangers and they've come back a-okay. So, and Caitlin put in the chat, the Tilly Garage, that stands for Take It or Leave It Garage, is also overrun with that kind of thing. So, you can find what you need and make it permanent. Helen.
Um, Thanks. So I mentioned in the chat one thing, and I don't know if Jude, you've looked into this. We found at the music festival that if the compostable ware wasn't clearly marked, especially the cups, and you have a mixed bunch of people at our festival, unlike Hudson, you can bring your own stuff in. So we have a huge amount of from home um, waste to sort through or to be sorted through. And if they bring plastic cups and we can't tell the difference, and all the volunteers have to look at the bottom, so we ask all our vendors to have clearly marked cups. And it's same goes for backstage where they've been a while to get them compliant, but I think we're there now.
Yeah, no,
Helen.
absolutely. If we've totally seen that too. Something that we also rely on is the passion that our members have for this. So the main kind of reasoning behind it, because trust me, I thought about this too. We were like, what if they just use whatever they have at home? Luckily, I'm very confident, at least confident enough that they wouldn't want to go through all the effort of getting the kit, using our materials. We've had times when a lot of our members will reach out to us and request that we give them either more or send them links to other products as well that are compostable for this scenario. And I think that obviously this is a trust situation, but if they're using this party pickups kit, they're not going to just go into their pantry and grab the plastic cutlery or whatever they happen to be using and contaminate it, if that answers your question. But great question, Tim. Thank you.
Sue, were you raising your hand? No? Okay. All right. So I think MJ, I'm not seeing the link, and when I went to the one that I had previous, it says responses are closed.
When I fought that fight like 2 nights ago, he said he reopened it. Which,
Oh, okay.
so by the way, if anybody, if anybody does go there and it doesn't work out, let me give you an email that you can contact me on.
Great.
Because once again, I'm dealing with multiple different people, and there's stuff he asked me about, and then there's stuff. No, I should have just put a link in. Jessica, it should be right before your response. HRMF 2006 volunteer sign up.
I think, are you sending it privately to one person? Because I don't think.
Westchester Alliance for
Oh,
Sustainability.
you're sending it to me or one of our accounts privately. You need to
Oh,
send to everyone. I
everyone.
think
Oh, sorry about that, folks.
that's okay. Sarah, you had a question. Let me stop sharing again. Go ahead.
Or more of a comment. At my church, we have a coffee hour, right, every Sunday. And so we try to make that a zero waste. And so, but we find that people like a choice. So we have, 60 mugs and 60 ceramic plates and real silverware that we put out. But we also offer a mix of the compostable hot cups and plates and compostable serveware. We have a food scraps bucket that we've trained people to use. So they're not huge events, but they happen every week. And cumulatively, I think it makes a difference. So every Sunday afternoon, I bring that food scraps bucket to our food scraps drop off in Yorktown, and it's not enough to bring to Anthony Carbone, but it's contributing. So just, it's a different kind of event.
I bring my 5-gallon toter to things like just cause.
Yeah,
if I don't use it,
exactly.
I don't use it. But if there is a use, then it's great to have it. All right, so I have a couple things to share just to
Well, actually, Courtney, can I say one more thing? It was inspired by what you just said.
mhm.
Is when I know that one of my pet peeves are environmental organizations that have events with food and they don't take into account to do effective materials management. So what I often do is I will contact them beforehand. I'll send them an email. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Courtney, you were great with your event. Others have not been so because they think they understand what sustainable materials management is, and to really do it right and well, it's a complex thing. It's not just having 3 bins out there and crossing your fingers that people will sort it right. And I have a kit when I'm going to something that I think there's a likelihood they're going to have food and they'll be receptive. I bring a kit, pack it in the car, walk in with my kit, my tongs, my bags, my signs. I say, okay, can I set up? And they look at me puzzled and they go, oh yeah, okay. And then I do, impromptu guerrilla zero waste.
Yep. I've benefited from your guerrilla food scraps recycling. All right, so these are the upcoming events that are working to reduce waste. So MJ spoke about the Hudson River Music Festival, Helen spoke about the Pleasantville Music Festival, and then WASS is working with Peekskill 100 and the Peekskill Conservation Advisory Council and Peekskill Pride to make Pride in the Park maybe not zero waste this year, but we're going to keep working towards that as a goal. So we are going to be manning the waste stations there. It's only for the afternoon on that date, which is the 27th. So if you would like to see how it have a relatively easy intro to waste management at an event, you can do it with WASS. So you can shoot us an email if you want to volunteer, and we will help you do that.
Is it near the train station or?
No, it's a hall. It's in
Got it.
downtown Peekskill. So you could walk, but it's a bit far.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And then I just want to remind everyone, if your municipality isn't doing all they can do, or you think they might be receptive to doing more, or they're doing something really innovative that WASS should know about so we can spread the word, we would love to meet with them. So we have launched our city by city approach to zero waste in Westchester. And we want to meet with your municipal officials, like not just the mayor, but like the DPW staff or the janitorial staff, like the people who are actually doing the work of managing the waste. and we want to have kind of a knowledge share with them. We can provide stuff like basics, nitty-gritty that they might not know about how the waste system works in Westchester. We have some creative solutions, cost savings from zero waste, draft legislation and toolkits, funding implementation information, quick reference fact sheet, and we actually tailor the presentation, diving into the data that's available from the county on what they're doing in terms of waste. So we could really use you as a constituent to help us get such a meeting, because if we just come in from the outside, it's not the same thing as residents reaching out to them. So shoot us an email. We even have like a templated outreach email that you could send to them. And I know Sarah's working on getting us one with Yorktown right now. So definitely reach out to us if you would like to help us get such a meeting with your municipality. And always a reminder, we have our core group of folks that put together these kinds of events, and we meet Monday evenings at 6 p.m. And we have another smaller meeting that's usually Monday afternoons around 1. So if you would like to get more involved, or there's something specific you want to do that WASS can help you to get done, please reach out and we'll send you the Zoom links for those. Both of those meetings are virtual. And then we've got a really big program scheduled for July, for our July Zero Waste Task Force. July is Plastic Free July, and we are going to acknowledge it with action this year and be launching an upon request mobilization. And we are working with Mothers Out Front, river towns, Lower Westchester and Northern Westchester, Beyond Plastics, Lower Westchester, Sustainable Westchester, Bedford 2030, and we are going to be doing a big push to kind of reinvigorate the upon request movement here in Westchester. So folks might not know, but we have a law when you get your takeout or whatever, they're not supposed to dump 40 bags of ketchup and a whole wad of plastic silverware in there unless you request it. And a lot of businesses don't realize this, and they're wasting their money by giving this to people that don't use it, and it just gets thrown away. So we are working on a way to kind of reinvigorate the law, the knowledge of it, do education, help encourage enforcement, all of that. So definitely plan to join on the 15th. As always, we record all of these task force meetings. So if you can't join us on the 15th, you can watch on YouTube when we post it. But we have, we're doing a big push on this because that is a major source of garbage, and particularly plastics, that we really don't need to be putting into the waste stream. And with that, I will end the meeting, being respectful of everyone's time, but we can stay on and chat because I see MJ has her hand up. So with that, thank you all for coming. A big thanks to our speakers, and we hope to see you all in July for our next meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Hey, Courtney, July 15th is like mid-month. Is there any